Cheers. Welcome to the water cooler. This week's show, we're going to teach you how to attract, engage, and convert seller leads by building a high-quality seller lead magnet. And here's the most important part. This is a repeatable process that everyone watching, every agent, every team can actually replicate in their market. If you're struggling to generate seller leads, this show is going to be for you because we're going to walk through everything, how to come up with the idea, how to actually build a landing page that converts. We'll talk through how to take a piece of content, turn it into a Facebook ad, an email, a post, an Instagram story, an Instagram post, and of course, using something like an on-site announcement. Many of you are not even using this as a great feature. And lastly, we're going to talk about the importance of the little details like headlines and copy and images. And we're going to talk about how to distribute this content to actually get the maximum results to help you attract the most amount of seller leads possible for your business. The Water Cooler is a show about marketing, sales, and technology. Each episode we focus on bringing advice that works. My name is Jimmy Mackin. I'm joined by my co-founder, my friend, best-selling author of The Conversion Code, Chris Smith. Chris, welcome to the call, buddy.
So basically the question is, why does everybody go after buyers when everybody wants listings?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very, very fair question. The reality is simple. It's easier. So if you're fishing and you want to catch a buyer lead from the ocean of humans, you would put a house on the hook. So that's so clear, Jimmy, right? There's no thoughtfulness required, like a listing alert, a listing, an open house, a price reduction, a coming soon. It is so clear to people how to get a buyer.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a different question, Jimmy, and I want you to put yourself into the audience's shoes.
Sure.
What do you put on the hook to catch a seller?
Well, the first thing you have to point out is that there isn't a universal answer to that question because every seller, in my opinion, is at a different stage in the process and has a different maybe objection or problem that they're trying to solve. Now, realistically, in the real world, Chris, you can use listings to attract sellers too. Like that's
you can.
But I think that's sort of cutting ourselves short from actually being creative. So for me, what do you use to actually attract sellers? Like I think you use content that actually answers questions they have in their mind or problems that they have. And of course, you can use a question that is the fundamental question most sellers have, which is, how much is my home worth? Is it worth more than I bought it? If I sell it, will I make a profit? If I sell it, will I miss out on potential, future gains if I hold on to the profit? Like you can get into that side.
So here's the reason it's so hard. Agents want to pretend that a CMA is the equivalent of a listing.
And it's not.
And so that's why you don't see a lot of seller marketing, because how many times do you want to run an ad or send an email that says, what's your home worth? What's your home worth? What's your home worth? With a listing, it's different because every time the listing, different price, different location, different amenities. So you can remix a listing over and over.
Sure.
Here's the way you get a seller. You can't trick people into listing with you. I mean, I just fundamentally think it's easier to kind of trick a buyer into going to see a home with you than it is to trick an owner into inviting them into your home.
There's definitely a change in the power dynamic, because I've heard this story so many times, Chris, where I think when a agent sits down a listing appointment, the consumer will say to them, the homeowner will say, well, we're interviewing other agents. Do you think that conversation happens in a buyer consultation as frequently as it happens with
No, the only thing that they do on that side of it is they might say they have an agent when you talk to them the first time.
Sure.
But it's funny because we're working on our new book, and there's actually, this is kind of a sneak peek at one of the tips. So if you change your words, you can change your world. And one of the things that's in the new book is, instead of saying, are you working with an agent? Like that's so common to ask. Instead say, who is your realtor? And if you think about the difference in that question, when you tell them to name them, well, I kind of know this one right? Versus, do you have an agent? Yeah, we've got an agent. So those are kind of the little nuggets in the new book, kind of a sneak peek, but everybody could use that one right away. When someone walks into your open house, don't say, do you already have an agent you're working with? Say, who is your realtor? Yeah. And a lot of times they'll say, I don't really have one. Versus if you say, do you have an agent? Yeah, we know a couple, right? So just changing that dynamic. But long story short, Jimmy, the way that you earn a listing is through expertise, stats, stories, reviews, content, data, CMAs. There's a lot of it. And it takes time, right? Like when people mail postcards, they're trying to get listings. There ain't a person in the world that's mailed a bunch of postcards and got a bunch of listings that got them on the first time they mailed it. So it's like consistent quality, expertise with stats and stories and 5-star reviews that you already did it great. Oh yeah. And you got to do that every month.
Yeah.
So I can see why it's daunting. When people see how we make the sausage today, a lot of them are going to want to run and hide.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody likes hot dogs. You don't want to go to the factory. We're going to show you the factory. We're going to let you see a sweat. We're going to show you that there literally are no corners that you can cut to attract sellers and get listings.
Yeah. And the alternative is for most people watching right now is this industry standard, which is two things primarily, which is, yes, you have your sphere of influence and you can generate referrals, which is sort of a feast or famine business. But what I find the vast majority of agents who do not have listings do, they go back to the old tire technique of calling FSBOs and expireds. That's primarily what they do to generate new listings. And I can't think, Chris, listen, people have built, this isn't a question whether or not you can grow your business calling expires and FSBOs. This is a question, do you want to hate your life? Because I could not imagine being in real estate and having to wake up every single day and go to battle with my customers just to get them to spend more than 60 seconds on the phone with me.
Well, so, Jimmy, let me give you a quick insight into what we're going to teach. 100% of the seller content that we create every month is impactful for a FSBO and an expired too. So I think what you're saying is you don't want to actually knock on the door and have the guy pull the shotgun out. And you don't want to have to cold call people that hate realtors because they just failed because they just actually didn't get their home sold by one. I understand that that's not an exciting life for you. But if you take the content and the strategy we're about to go through, it will impact an expired.
Yeah.
It will impact a FSBO. Do you honestly think FSBOs aren't on Facebook and Instagram? Do you honestly think the lady that's home expired doesn't log on to Facebook every day? So you can still get your stuff in front of them, and you could do it with class. You could do it with your head held high. But I'll be honest, if I was knocking on doors and I was mailing stuff to expireds, I'd be doing the same thing I learned today.
Sure.
I'd just be printing it out and taking it with me.
So what you're saying is that the medium, meaning whether you're calling expireds, calling FSBOs, is not nearly as important as the message, which is what are you actually leading with? And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, let me give you a quick tip on door knocking. This is just a quick story, and then let's get into the funnel. So I was out washing my car or something on a Saturday, and this guy comes up to me, and he said, "Hey, did you hear about the kidnapping?" And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" And he said, "There was a kidnapping about 2 miles from here, and they took a kid. You got kids?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got kids." He goes, "Well, here's the article from the paper." And he showed me the cutout from the Orlando Sentinel about the kids getting kidnapped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Holy crap, man. Thanks for letting me know." He's like, "Yeah, and guess what I sell? I sell security systems, bitch." You know what I'm saying, Jimmy? So that's
newsjacking right there.
Exactly. But do you know how much more effective that was to get me to stop and hear him out and consider his offer compared to, are you interested in an alarm system?
Yeah.
So that would be my example of like, if I personally quit what I'm doing right now and had to go door knock, especially in Florida.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I'll be sweating my ass off, Jimmy, real quick. If I had to do that, I would still want to do that with my head held high. That's my point.
Yeah. My question to that guy would be, were you the guy who kidnapped the kid?
Yeah, that is a good strategy.
All right, so let's get into it, because I think right now everyone's wondering, because we talked about the complexity of this, but as you said, we're going to show people the process in which we follow. And as I led the show off, Chris, I talked about how this is actually a repeatable model. This is not a sort of a random sequence of events. We actually follow this exact same model every single time. So it starts with where every marketing campaign should start with, which is a brainstorm.
Yeah, well, we created a huge graphic of the whole process. If John can pull that up, this is the global view of everything we're going to teach in the next 47 minutes. So this is 100% of what we'll cover, but it actually is a very logical step-by-step process. And you're absolutely right. Step one is the origination of the idea. So let's zoom into that, Jimmy. Mike built a beautiful presentation here. Walk us through the idea phase, because this really is step one what are you going to create?
Yeah, sure. So I think, and I'll have you speak about the 75-25 rule, but just at a high level, what we're trying to do during the idea phase is we're trying to basically collect all of the data and insight from all of the key sources to help inform our decision-making process. So we're going to be looking at services like BuzzSumo, Chris, which is a great resource to identify the top articles by share and activity. We're going to Google Trends to identify what's actually trending right now. We're gonna absolutely look at, and this is a quick pro tip, blogs that we follow outside of our industry. You know, there's so many times, Chris, in which we're coming up with an idea that we actually adapt something totally unrelated to real estate for real estate. We do it all the time. So we don't get caught in this position where we're just sort of like regurgitating the same old real estate, centric content. But fundamentally, we basically, in addition to using things like analytics, we have a set of resources that are sort of the treasure trove that we pull from to be able just to list these ideas out. During this phase, it's worth pointing out, Chris, during this phase, we're not actually vetting the ideas. We're just dumping them into the discussion pool so we can actually talk about them later on. I think people are too easy to like, oh, that's a bad idea, forget about it. Like you might come back and use it a little bit later.
Yep. Yeah, we have a Slack channel. This is the way we manage it, and people can use different chat tools, but we use Slack.
Yep.
We have a channel called Brain Trust. 29 days out of the month, people are adding ideas. Now, here's the real pro tip. If you work for me and we choose your idea, we give you a gift card. Like, we don't just ask our employees to submit ideas.
Yeah.
If they submit an idea that we choose, we circle back and say, hey, Logan, we really appreciated your idea. We ended up using it. Here's a gift card to thank you for contributing. So yeah, we're looking at Google Analytics. Now, here's a great pro tip. If you go to BuzzSumo and you put in a domain name, this is one people don't know, Jimmy. So if I go to BuzzSumo and I put in Zillow.com/blog, it will show me not just the most popular pages on Zillow, it'll show me their most social shared blog articles, right? And so by putting that domain in, and you could put New York Times/real estate, you could put Trulia, you know what I mean? So BuzzSumo is great because it shows you what got the most traction that you didn't create.
Yeah.
And then for YouTube and for Google, what we're doing is we're saying, sort our stuff by the best ever. And I'll tell you why we do that. One is there's ideas you've already done that will work again, and you just have to tweak them.
Yep.
So as an example, we ran a buyer campaign that we got inspired by the New York Times. See what $1 million buys you right now, okay? And we saw that the New York Times had done that, the Wall Street Journal had done that, Zillow had done that. So we said, okay, that's a winning idea. And we did it for our clients, and it blew up. It got tons of traffic, tons of leads, everything you'd want from a campaign. Well, when we saw how well it did, we said, you know what? What if we can let that inspire the next idea? So we came up with another idea that was see the difference between a $600, $800, and $1 million listing, right? And so if you look at the past, you can predict the future. Another example, we did an article called 7 Facebook ads worth copying, okay? People loved it. So then we said, okay, why don't we just do one about emails worth copying? Why don't we do one about Instagram accounts worth copying? Why don't we do one about blog posts worth copying? So your old ideas can become new again with a little bit of a twist. The other thing there, though, Jimmy, is see how it says evergreen versus real time?
Yeah.
When we are having ideas submitted, we always want to think like, can we use this now or can we use this forever? Okay. So as an example, we just put out a Father's Day article a couple weeks ago. We cannot use that forever. Next week, we're putting out an article about July 4th. We cannot use that forever. But the reality is that when something is that timely and relevant, it does better.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to make sure that as you're adding ideas, you have a good balance of evergreen plus real time. You can kind of combine them. We have an article we're going to show today, 19 ways to improve your home's value this summer. That's kind of a hybrid. It's an evergreen article because the tips kind of stand the test of time. but we added kind of the seasonality to the end of it so that it would feel more relevant right now. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in the idea phase, Jimmy, is the 75-25 rule. And what that means is that as much as we want to lean on data and insights and analytics and BuzzSumo, and like we have a tool called Curaytor Brain, no one else has access to it. We can look at all the top performing ads and emails of every Curaytor client anytime we want. So yes, we have data. We're not guessing. We're using data-driven decisions, which is what most people wish they were doing. But we don't do that with everything we create. Once a month, think of it 100% of a month, 25% is 1 week. 25% of the campaigns we run have no theory behind them. It is literally us saying, we're really smart, and so we're going to create the next idea. Like if we only use ideas that have worked in the past, like how do you think those ideas got proven to work?
Yeah.
At some point, somebody tried something they had never done. So our mix is usually 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 are sort of pre-proven, but 1 out of 4 or 5, we are using our gut, and that's fine. That's where all the best ideas came from at one point.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go too, you know, how like in sports right now, Jimmy, analytics, right? You got analytics and you got manalytics, right? Like analytics is the data. Manalytics is like you just look at the dude and he looks big and tough. I like big, tough dudes on my football team, right? So you can analyze his 40 or you can watch him play. Yeah. And I think the gut that we use is kind of like manalytics, you know, womanalytics, if you will.
Sure.
The analytics is all these data sources we go to, but don't stop being creative. Like, don't stop guessing what might work, because when you crack that code, even if once every 2 or 3 months your gut worked, well, now that becomes something that you can use over and over.
You know what that makes me think of, Chris? It makes me think of the difference between a professional marketer and an amateur marketer. An amateur marketer, you know, is trying to find that secret sauce, works every single time, and they try to sort of follow the blueprint without any sort of deviation whatsoever. And what professional marketers know is that you can only operate in the world of sort of a high degree of confidence, but you also have to be prepared and willing to sort of try things that flop. Because if you don't do that, you're never going to hit that sort of home run or that grand slam that's possible if you actually are willing to put yourself out there. But there's one thing you said there that actually made me think, and I think most people who are watching right now probably make this mistake, because we live in a world where everything has to be new and different all the time. And that is the concept of doubling down, Chris. You just said at the beginning that, you know, we look in the past because the past predicts the future. How many of you watching right now feel like you have campaigns that you have run in the past marketing campaigns? It could be mailers, it could be Facebook ads, it could be content you've created or events that worked really well for your business, but you haven't done it again. And I think the vast majority of people can think instantly of something they did in the past that they haven't repeated because they kind of got caught up in these ideas.
How about the water cooler, Jimmy, right? We did it for 4 years. We got bored. We took a break. We brought it back. Like we didn't have a better idea for a podcast. You have to get good at being bored. I always say, don't trip over nickels to pick up pennies.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what people do. They always want to know what the next big thing. Well, the next big thing is already here, right? Like per Samsung, the best ideas are already out there.
Sure.
Cool, man. So step 2, we've got the ideas.
Yep.
And then what we do is we take all of those ideas and we go into a big, long meeting, Jimmy. Let's zoom in on that. So, and you want to take the lead here on phase 2?
Well, just in terms of the meeting, I think the one thing I'll say, I think what we do a really good job at Curaytor, that we've learned doing this for a long time, is that we involve people who have different backgrounds and experiences and different perspectives. So when we go into a meeting, it's just not just the two of us. A designer, we got Jess, we got me, we got you, and we got obviously everyone else's input. I think it's important though when we talk about this meeting, and this is the part that I really want you to focus on, Chris, and that is the order, because obviously we get all these ideas, but how do we actually get from the ideas to actually choosing the topics? Like, what is that, just like a voting process? Like, hey, we got 3 votes for this idea, like this one's going to be vetted? Is there something else that goes into that?
It's a little bit of that, right? It's sort of,
a little bit.
So picture we're giving everybody input all month.
Sure.
And then we have a 3-hour meeting.
Yeah.
Where we have a smaller group of people, me, you, Mike, and Jess, and we are choosing from all of those ideas, plus, of course, bringing our own.
Sure.
What you're getting at, though, is there's a cadence, right? If you plan in advance and you look at the next month, you would never plan buyer, 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 buyer.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the month before, and let's say that the last campaign in June was for your past clients. Well, then maybe the first campaign in July shouldn't be. Do you really want to email your past clients 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah.
So it's not just about the ideas and taking the best for. It's about taking the right for. And for us, that's a combination of seller, past client, and buyer. Yeah. Now, you have to remember, Jimmy, what we said earlier. Everybody's really good at fishing with their listings. So what we found is that you almost want to overcompensate for seller and past client. A lot of times, as you know, out of the course of a month, 3 out of the 4 campaigns might be seller and past client first.
Sure.
And then like one of them might be to attract buyers. That's really one of the big differences between Curaytor and all the other companies out there that help agents. We are sort of 75, 80% seller and client focused. The other companies are, like you said, about 95% buyer focused. But the concept is simple. If you do one really good buyer campaign a month, plus you promote your listings when they come on the market and change stages, you're going to have more buyer leads than you know what to do with. So we are a little heavier on the seller and past client side, but we also try to think about the cadence. Like sometimes what we'll do is like we'll do something in week 3 that has mass appeal to homeowners.
Yeah.
And then in week 4, we might do like only an email to the people that read week 3.
Yeah.
So part of it is like having the 2 weeks work together.
Sure.
Part of it is making sure that it's not just past client, past client, past client, past client, buyer, 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 buyer. It's kind of about the spacing and the sequencing of the campaign.
Yeah, and I think when you start to plan, and this is just the reality, Chris, when you start to plan a month in advance, you're able to take great ideas and punt on them for a few months. You know, our cutting room floor for our ideas is better than most people's entire marketing campaign. The things that we don't do is better than most people's marketing campaigns because we are willing to say, you know what, based on the cadence and the flow and the sequencing of this idea is a great idea. It's an evergreen idea. It's going to work, but it's not going to fit into this month. So we've got to punt on this thing for a little while, and that happens during the process.
I have a trash keep and donate strategy with my children, right? Like about once a month, we go to their room and I make them look at every item. And they get to tell me, do you want to keep it? Do you want to throw it away? Or do you want to donate it? And I think if you think about our marketing plans that way, there's things we keep, which means we do them that month. There's things we trash, which means we never do them. But then there's things we donate to the next month. Right? So we have the equivalent of a rollover doc or an overflow doc. So, and you're absolutely right, Jimmy. Our scraps are better than most people's main course.
Yeah, and that's just because we were in the thick of it, planning this stuff in advance. And again, I don't think people realize, Chris, when you're spending so many hours a month putting this together, the impact it has on probably the most difficult thing people struggle with right now, which is consistency. If you look
and here's the thing, at the end of this 3-hour meeting specifically, we've got the ideas, we go into the meeting. There's one goal at the end of this meeting, to know what the next month's angles are. Okay. Now that doesn't mean we have like the title for sure. That doesn't mean the article's ready. We haven't done the graphics. Like there's a lot more to do. But at the end of the brainstorm, the success would be defined by knowing what you're doing, which week, the next month. So you're showing here, it's a little fuzzy from where I'm standing, but you've got 4 weeks in a row in June. So that would have been created and signed off on around May 15th.
Yeah. So we're about 2 weeks before the actual launch of the campaigns, or the first campaign for the first month. We're already signed off on the actual
Well, let me tell you why we give ourselves that 2 weeks. Because in theory, you could just do the last day of the month.
Sure.
But the reason we give ourselves those 2 weeks, Jimmy, is part of what comes out of those ideas we choose is now somebody's got to go write them.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to go do the design for the graphics for them. So it would be a little bit naive to come up with your ideas in week 4 and then have to do one the next week, because you have to be realistic. You have to be realistic that if you want to write a great article or a great page or a great email, you ain't just going to be able to pop that off the next day.
Yeah.
So by the middle of the month, we know what we're doing next month, and then we assign that to the writers or the designers. And then now they've got a deadline of the week it's due, the week before it's due.
I'm curious to get feedback from our live audience right now. How many of you know exactly what you're going to be marketing week by week in the month of July? And be honest, just post in the chat right now. Do you know exactly what you're going to be posting in the month of July?
Yeah, I'd love John to even create a poll. I don't know if he can do that in real time.
We have the ability to create polls, guys.
Is your July marketing calendar done? Yes or no? I would be fascinating to collect that data. And it would either be 100% no, or people would lie.
Yeah. So we got the ideas, Chris. We did the brainstorm. We have all these ideas. We vetted the ideas. Now we're actually, compiling the actual calendar. We're thinking about things like the sequence. We're thinking about things like the frequency. We're thinking about things like which piece of content may take the longest for us to complete. So we might put that towards the end of the month. Now we've actually got the ideas pretty much locked in. Again, we haven't defined all of the specifics yet. That's going to come next. But we have the ideas pretty much locked in. Now we're going to be moving into sort of the plan creation phase. This is sort of where we actually put our hard hats on and do the work. So I want you to set the stage for us in terms of the order in which we go and some of the obviously specifics around the process of actually creating content now that you've got the plan.
Yeah. So the first thing we do is we want the actual content. So the actual article or page, we want to start by making sure that the big piece of content is done.
Yep.
And the visuals for that are done. Okay. Meaning there's a graphic for the page or post.
Yeah.
And there's words for the page or post. It is incredibly naive and misguided to think that you can develop the tweet or the Instagram visual if you don't have the actual piece of content tuned in.
Why not?
Well, here's what happens, Jimmy. If I write the tweet before I vet the article, inevitably I'm going to want to rewrite the tweet when I'm done vetting the article. So you've got to make sure, we call it case, create, advertise, social, email, right? So the ads and the social and the email, they can only happen once the creation is done. And so what we do is we pour our heart and soul into the primary piece of content. And by doing that, the microcopy and the visuals are almost self-explanatory. Not completely, but if we don't have the content done and we start writing Facebook profile or LinkedIn posts for it, when we do make the changes to the main piece of content, that's going to have a ripple effect. We're going to have to go change all the microcopy. Yeah. So like, pull up a page for me, Jimmy. Pull up our seller /sellers. And I'll kind of walk people through what I mean by this. So this is a landing page / lead capture seller page that we just built and we just deployed for clients a couple weeks ago. And so if you start to scroll, Jimmy, you've obviously got a headline. You've got these kind of step 1, step 2, step 3 graphics. You're going to see a lot of copy. I want you to explain to the audience why there's so much copy in a second. But if you kind of zoom in on the quotes, right, and you kind of zoom in on the headlines, the things that you would call out, like what does that say, Jimmy? Read that quote to me really quick. People are going to love
this is a quote from Zillow. We encourage buyers, sellers, and homeowners to supplement Zillow's information by doing more research and getting a comparative market analysis, CMA, from a real estate agent. So Zillow is basically saying supplement Zestimates with a CMA.
Yeah, go to the next widget that has a quote from Zillow. It looks just like that last one. It's got the different visual element there. There you go. What's that one say?
It's a mouthful, Chris. We use proprietary automated valuation models that apply advanced algorithms to analyze our data to identify relationships within a specific geographic area, oh my God, between the home-related data and actual sales prices.
I mean, you sound like a bot. That is like a human bot. So for those of you that think AI and machine learning are the next big thing, reread that sentence a couple times, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the concept, Jimmy. If we are literally building a page and we're choosing the things that should be highlighted on the page, can you imagine that might show up in the ad? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that might show up in the email? Can you imagine that we might have just taken the quote word for word and turned it into an Instagram post? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So by really obsessing about what's called the pillar, the hub, the spokes become a lot easier to develop. Now, I know a lot of people, Jimmy, scroll back to the very top of this page because I want to show a couple best practices here.
Sure. Well, let me just speak about the copy for one moment before you get into that. Because you asked the question, why do we write so much copy? Because most people look at this, Chris, and say, oh, well, I just have this already. I already got this. Why do I need this? The way that we like to think about it is that there is a brick wall between you and that lead giving you their information. And the copy you write is sort of the ladder that's going to get them over that wall. They have objections in their mind. They don't want to give you their information. They don't want to fill out a form. So the more compelling your copy is, that helps explain what happens when I give you my information. Why should I give you my information? What are you going to do with my information? How is it going to add value to me? How is it going to help me solve my problems? And then what should I do next? If you're answering those questions with your landing page via your copy, your images, your quotes, you are going to build a ladder over that wall that's going to increase the likelihood of someone actually converting into a lead. More importantly, it's someone who is a high intent, and I know you get some data on this, Chris, a high intent lead. So yes, you need to have a simple form, which Chris will talk about best practices here in a second, but the copy below helps you build that bridge for customers that otherwise is absent in most landing pages.
Yeah, so here's some interesting stats. So the average sales page that gets opted in through has 2,000 words. Okay, so go look at your sales pages. And what happens, Jimmy, is if you are trying to get someone to register for something that either requires a lot of info or is kind of a big commitment, you've got to build your case. You're right. You've got to knock that brick wall down. Every agent in the industry can go sign up for a little widget that says, put your address in and we'll guess your value. But Jimmy, isn't that exactly what agents fight against? That if a robot guesses the value, it's wrong. You need me. So this is a page that's going to get less leads that are ready to hire you. This is a page that's going to get less leads, but it's going to get almost 100% response rate when a lead comes in. Now, go to the bottom object, Jimmy. I'll show a couple cool tricks here. So the other thing we're doing, and this was the template when we did this for the clients, we actually, for a lot of them, put their picture right there. This is a person. There is a human involved. The human is going to create this for you. So what happens is when you set that expectation, they're not going to give you this like, hey, I thought this was going to be a Zestimate and I wasn't going to have to talk to anybody. Like if you've ever done the old home value way, and you've gotten people to say, oh, I thought I was just going to get a report. This is the kind of copy and visual that eliminates that. Now, here's what's interesting, Jimmy. In this exact example, the person has scrolled to the bottom of the landing page. But what we actually wanted them to do was fill out the thing at the top. So show them a little bit of our magic. Watch what happens when Jimmy clicks the button at the bottom. It just goes right back to the form. That's what Jimmy calls bookending. So in a perfect world, they would get here and fill it out. Some people will scroll and have to read, and then they'll scroll back to fill it out. Some people will go all the way to the bottom, and then you just want to hyper scroll them right back up. That's what that trick is. That's called hyper scrolling. What do you call that, Jimmy? Web hooks or something? I don't know.
You're just it's not even important. You're just driving them you're driving them to the top of the page, which is exactly. I like hyper scrolling. We'll go with that one.
Well, it looks like a button that's going to open something new.
You're keeping them in the same place.
Exactly. It just scrolls them back up. Now, here's the other cool thing, Jimmy. Start to put in our address. Put in the Boston office address, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
And what you guys are seeing there is it's already filling in the address, and Jimmy hasn't even typed more than a couple characters. That's called Google Type Ahead. That computer is in Boston. And so just by him starting to put in an address, it's already narrowing it down. Like, you can click now, right, Jimmy? And it'll fill the rest. So that's called Google Type Ahead. Google provides that through their map tool. Now hit next. Here's the beauty of what we just did. We have now secured what's called a partial lead, okay? Even though the consumer on this next step can still quit, we at least know the address they put in on step one.
Yeah.
If you're in real estate and you have an address of someone that saw an ad that said, would you like to get an accurate report about what your home could sell for? Even if they bounce on step two and they don't complete it, we consider that still a hand raiser. Knock on their door, mail them something, print a CMA and go to their house. You know, those are all effective tactics, even if you only have an address. But here's the point. Because of the copy and because of what we established on that first page, way more people are going to fill out step two, which is your more traditional name, phone number, email, submit. Now, Jimmy, this is one of my favorite tricks in marketing. Fill out that form as if you're completing it. And then
Well, just one thing as you're about to set that up.
Sure.
In Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, he talks about the idea, Chris, of people's desire to complete something they start. So what you're doing here when you have a two-step registration process is you're exposing a simple thing for people who can just enter an address. Doesn't require a lot of effort, but they start the process. So if you have a long form, you've got to break it up into two steps. It's going to dramatically increase the likelihood that lead actually converting and giving you all their information.
Yes, Jimmy, real quick though. Annette, we need to make sure we put this into our marketing. 94% of people do not have a July marketing plan.
Wow.
94% do not know what they're doing next month. And it reminds me of our buddy Phil Jones, Jimmy. The worst time to think about what to say is while you're saying it.
Yeah. It's rushed.
It's really tricky. And I understand it's hard to get ahead. I get it. That's why we're popular. Like, we're not saying every agent can do everything we're teaching today. But let me be really clear. If you have a team, these are the kinds of things you should be doing. By the way, Jimmy, how many of our clients say, I have an in-house marketer? Well, I want you guys to think that have an in-house marketer, if they're doing what we just showed. Are they putting that much thoughtfulness into it? Are they looking at that many sources? Because I'll take our marketer over almost any in-house marketer all day long.
Yeah.
They don't have the ideas. Plus, the agent's going to tell them what to do. Hey, go do this, go do that. And they don't even know telling them the right stuff.
That was going to be my defense of the in-house marketers, was going to be like, they're at the whim of the real estate agents' ideas in the moment. So they're never able to get ahead and plan because there's a listing to promote, there's a fire to put out, there's a campaign to like, they're just sort of always reacting to what's happening. And what happens is, Chris, you said at the beginning of the show, like 75% of our ideas are evergreen. So you never have the chance to build meaningful campaigns that can actually stand the test of time when you're constantly just running around. All right, so we get the form filled out. Step one, step two, what happens next?
So now this is one of the biggest opportunities in marketing that people miss. So hit submit. This is called the confirmation message, okay? So what happens is when a form is submitted, there's usually kind of the concept of, hey, thank you for filling out the form.
Yeah.
And then you can set the expectation. You can say, we'll begin preparing your report. Keep an eye on your inbox. You'll be getting it within 24 hours. See what I'm saying? Because a lot of people, Jimmy, they have FOMO. That like, if I don't provide this report right away, they're going to be mad at me. No. What did we say on the other page, Jimmy? This is handcrafted. Yeah. This ain't instant. This is accurate. This takes time. So you're just kind of, number one, reinforcing that you should keep an eye on your inbox because we're putting it together. And then you can also kind of set the expectation as to when it would arrive. But see that big fat button there, Jimmy? What does that say? I can't read it.
It says read reviews.
Ooh. Read reviews. So what we're doing is you can actually get the person that already submitted the form to go do another thing as long as it's relevant. So in this case, you wanted a CMA from a human that was accurate.
Yeah.
It probably would also make sense that you would want to know that the human providing it had 5-star reviews. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're coupling this. This is called a confirmation page, a thank you page, and it's a big opportunity. Now, there's one other thing that just happened that no one got to see, which is the autoresponder that goes out by email. And this is another huge opportunity, right? So we set the tone that we're going to provide your home's value and that it's going to be accurate and that we're going to prepare it for you, right? So when that gets submitted, there's an email and the subject line says your home's value. But the message doesn't have a CMA. That would defeat the purpose of why would you instantly send the CMA? That defeats the purpose of this campaign. But what the message does is it gets the lead to give you an additional piece of information about their home so that your CMA can be better.
Yeah. And we call that enrichment.
Yeah, you're enriching the lead with more data. And the way that we approach that is, hey, we're preparing your report. While we do, I just had a quick question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the condition of the property, right? Because clearly the condition of a property impacts the value. And so now you've got the lead.
Yep.
You're going to build the report, but you've also got to reply to the automation that says my home's a 9 out of 10. And conversations create customers. And that reply is basically, no offense, that's the beginning of the end for them. Because once they reply, we're good. We're going to do a deal with them. Now we have a relationship started. So there's so many little best practices that go into these campaigns that I think a lot of people just forget to think about.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question specifically about that autoresponder, and I definitely want you to talk about the giveaway because we have something really special that we're doing for this month for all of our fans of the water cooler. But one thing I want everyone to think about when we go back to the confirmation page, the way to think about the confirmation page and the way to sort of value it is 100% of your highest value leads are going to see this page. What are you going to do about it? And Chris, what percentage of customers or leads open up that first email? Like
a lot. Like it's your best email open rate ever.
70%, 80%. Like, you know, it's
and you know, a mistake I see, sometimes we are out of touch with regular marketers, Jimmy, because we, like you said, it's the curse of knowledge. Like we just intuitively get all this stuff. But do you know how many people's autoresponder says, thank you for your inquiry, someone will be in touch with you shortly?
Yeah, it's the same mistake they make on the confirmation page. They make it with the email autoresponder.
Yeah, so Jimmy, let's do the contest, and then we're going to go into the microcopy, the graphics, and the distribution of the plan. But we have a ridiculous contest that we're doing this summer that we want you guys all to enter to win. And what we're giving away, Jimmy, is a lot better than a book. So we are giving away a MacBook Air or an iPhone 10 or a Galaxy S10. Jimmy, we are giving away $1,000 plus piece of hardware. And the way that you can enter to win is go to Curaytor.com/audio. Now, when you get there, you're going to see a really cool tool that we're using called Gleam. And what it does is you can register with your name and email to enter. And then on the next step, there's different things you can do to help us spread the word. And as you complete each item, you actually get another entry in the contest.
Wait a second. I'm looking at the...
Is it a follow Chris on Insta?
Where's the Jimmy Mackin follow? There's nothing on this. It's follow Chris on Twitter. It's follow Chris on Insta.
I like it. I love. This is what happens.
Did you guys run out of boxes? There's no more option?
No, when you skip the prep meetings, this is exactly what happens, right? I get to skew it in my favor. You might want to unplug and plug that thing in front of you back in to just see if it's still working, because that counter, mine's down here. Mine's below me. There's so many numbers on it, we can't even show it. But this is a tool called Gleam, and it's actually a really cool tool. Annette found it. She suggested it. Great suggestion by her. But if you run a contest, a lot of times people enter their email to enter a contest, or they like a post. Well, what this allows you to do is people can create multiple entries, all for the same contest. So if they follow me, if they do a tweet, if they subscribe on Spotify, subscribe on iTunes, it gives them additional chances to win. And what we're really doing, Jimmy, is listen, we love the Water Cooler Live. We love doing this show, the audience engagement, the interaction. I will never stop doing the show live. I really don't think we ever should. But the reality is that thousands and thousands of people listen to it afterwards. They don't listen to it live. And in the summer, you guys are probably driving around, going to the beach, working out, hanging at the pool. And it's incredibly hard to watch a show while you do that. So I personally, Jimmy, every Thursday when I wake up and I'm getting ready in the morning, I go to iTunes and I listen to the show to see how we did. I personally don't watch the replay. If I'm not on, I watch live because I love watching live, like I said. But if I am hosting the show, or I just listen the next day. So we're really looking for audio subscribers. Curaytor.com/audio. Go there and enter to win. And on July 17th, it's kind of some other breaking news here, Jimmy. The contest is going to end on July 17th when I interview Tom Ferry. Tom Ferry is coming on the Water Cooler in July. And at the end of the episode with Tom, we're giving away the prize. Now, here's what's cool. You guys get to choose the one you win. So let's say you've got a MacBook and you've got an iPhone and you've been wanting to try Samsung, but you didn't want to spend $1,000. Now you can try a Samsung. Let's say you've got a Samsung S10 already, but you got a PC and you've been wanting to try a MacBook. So whoever wins this contest gets to choose which of those three they get. I'm pumped for it. It's really going to be a fun thing. It's about a 30-day contest. We'll be announcing the winner July 17th at the end of the Tom Ferry episode.
We very much appreciate you guys following us on the audio stuff. Most of my podcasts, Chris, it's funny you say that, even though we put on a live broadcast, it's got video, like 95% of the podcasts I listen to, it's audio only.
Yeah, even with YouTube, like I paid for, I don't know what they call it, YouTube Pro, YouTube Red. And I don't have YouTube TV. I got PlayStation TV. But for YouTube, they have a feature where you can lock your screen and still hear the video. But you have to pay for that. So even when I watched it before, I was still listening just with my phone locked. Anyway, Curaytor.com/audio. We know you guys try to tune in live every week, but we also know that you can't. So make sure you're connected on the spokes.
Very cool. All right, so now we've got the idea. We did the brain trust. We did the refinement. We actually have the plan. Now we built the page is done. We built the content. Now we go into what we refer to as sort of the microcopy and the graphics. So walk me through the sort of next step.
Yeah, the next step is the graphics that we're going to use to promote this on social. So you'll notice that the next step, I think if you just hit forward, that's going to actually go into, you may have passed it.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
this is my first time using Prezi in about 6 years.
It's okay. I was telling Jimmy before the show, we're bringing Prezi back. Like, we thought this was a cool show to do it. And Jimmy, did we drop the link to this Prezi in the live chat?
If not, we will.
We should have, Ned, if we haven't. Like, people can follow along. I mean, it's a beautiful thing that Mike built. There's no reason to hide it. But what you're seeing now, Jimmy, is before we do the copy for social media, which is basically the last step, before we do that, we have to do the visuals.
Yeah.
Because the graphics and the copy are like peanut butter and jelly. You don't want to write the copy if you don't know what the graphic says.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to just say what the graphic says and repeat it in the copy. A lot of people will read the graphic first and then they will read the copy. So you want those to be yin and yang. You want the copy and the graphic and the copy in that to work together. So in this example, 19 home projects that increase your value this summer. Now, we also create multiple versions of the graphics. So you can see there's one at the top with the paint strip. one that's a little bit more icon-y, one that's got the house, like the old house and the new house. And then you've got the one with like the sangria fruit, Jimmy?
Yeah.
So that is us basically saying, you know what? Everybody has a little bit of a different brand and a little bit of a different style and a little bit of a different taste. And so instead of coming up with one graphic, we try to create several, and then we kind of let the client or the marketers choose the one that's the best in line with their brand. Yeah. So like for Father's Day, one of our clients, Kevin Owens, he chose the one that had like a hipster with his jacket open, showing a bunch of ties he was selling.
Yeah.
But Kevin has kind of a young, modern, fun, hip brand. There's a lot of clients that would never want that graphic with their brand. Their brand is more luxury or professional, right? So that's all we're trying to do here with the graphics is we're just showing people whether you want to be modern and sophisticated, whether you want to be fun and hip, whether you want to be elegant, like you can turn any piece of content into several graphics. And what we're doing here, Jimmy, is it's an Instagram story size. Mm-hmm. It's a Twitter size. It's a blog post size. It's a Facebook ad size, and it's an Instagram post size. So once you've got the main graphic, and by main graphic, that's the one for the Facebook ad that's going to get the biggest budget and drive the most views. Once you've got, call it the rectangle, all you're doing is making a square and making a skyscraper to have those for the other places you're going to promote them.
Two quick follow-up questions. The first thing is, because you mentioned posting on Insta, on Twitter, on Facebook, of course through email on your actual website as well. Should that image be the same across all those channels, or should I pick and choose from if I'm creating some variations with my branding? Is there an advantage or disadvantages to having sort of consistency across all platforms, or should you break it down based on the different platforms you're basically posting?
Yeah, there's times like if you look at that one in the middle, Jimmy, with the paint.
Yep.
So that is a grid of paint choices, and so for this, for the campaign that we're running right now, we didn't choose that paint grid for the Facebook ad, okay? But we did use it for the Facebook profile, and we did use it for the Instagram post. So there's times where the visual that you would put in an ad, it's not the same visual you would put in a post to your friends.
And that's going to be based off of whether we're trying to get the click or the comment.
Exactly. If our goal's traffic and page views and leads, we're going to put something that basically conveys what it's about with a link. But as you know, Jimmy, through the Facebook profile especially, we very rarely even put a link because we know that the reach of a profile, you get more reach with no link. Yeah. Now, on an ad, we're going to pay, so it doesn't matter if there's a link, because by paying, we're going to supersede the algorithm. Yeah. So that paint strip, as simple as it is, I think we asked a question like, if you had to paint your kitchen tonight, what color would you choose? And I mean, there's people getting 50 to 100 comments in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty remarkable when you think about this, the level of detail that goes into something like associating an image with the actual purpose of the campaign. But guys, this is not a watered down class. The goal was to give you guys an inside look in terms of the way we think about it. Here's my second follow-up question to that, Chris. I'm an agent who's watching right now. I love the ideas. I'm following along. I get it. You make sense. Market your business, attract people to your business, convert them into a lead, and then distribute this content across all my channels. When it gets to this part of the process, I find that most people struggle. They have no design background. They have no skills as it relates to basically, representing or beautifully representing their brand. If you were to ask them which of these images best represents your brand, it's hard for them to make that decision because they haven't thought that deeply about it. What is their options for those people?
By the way, not to mention, when we give these graphics to our team, they actually change the colors to match the client's brand.
Yeah.
And they add the logo. So there is a little bit more work even after this to make it on brand. If you suck at design, go to Shutterstock, go to Canva, go to Unsplash. Like, just grab a graphic that you like. But this is a tricky part. Realtors aren't designers. They're not copywriters. They're not Facebook experts. That's why we exist, Jimmy. And by the way, before we go through the micro copy to wrap it up, if you're watching this right now and saying, holy crap, I would rather you guys do this for me every single week. Like, I don't want to develop the plan. I don't want to write the graphics. I don't want to create the page, and I don't want to publish the post. That is literally what we sell. And tomorrow we're doing a live demo of what it means to be a Curaytor client. You guys can go right now to curaytor.com/demo. I think we have a slide for that. But curaytor.com/demo. Tomorrow, Sarah, who hosts the Agent Insights water cooler, she is going to walk you through how you can literally outsource everything we're going through today to Curaytor. Like, Jimmy, let me have you show one thing really quickly, because I showed that seller page and I think it's very overwhelming for people. Show what it means if you're a Curaytor client to have to publish that page. What do they have to do?
Yeah, sure. So all they have to do, because we're loading the exact version of the plan, the template that we created for you, into your website, and it's gonna be available to you in your actual like content library. So you're literally just clicking one button here, Chris. In this case, is the home value, and it's going to create the page for you. And now, again, if you want to edit it or you want to change it, by all means, but we've already done 99% of the work. So that one click.
One more click is publish right at the top there. So in 2 clicks, you've got it. And we load the email for you. We send you all the micro copy. Like, this is what it means to work with us, is that all of this gets done for you every week and every month. So you can focus on people. We'll handle the pixels. You can focus on people. We'll pick up the new passwords, right? Like, most realtors don't like logging into all this stuff all the time. So anyway, curaytor.com/demo, you can register right now and learn more about just hiring us to do this. But the last step, Jimmy, which is a critical step, and we do have to go through it rapid fire, I got a 5-minute hard stop. Google Docs, okay? Do you have the actual Google Doc that we use? Do you have that handy?
Yep.
So the last step, you guys, is saying, okay, I've got my graphics and I've got my content. Now I want to put it on all the social networks and email it the right way. So Jimmy, zoom in a little there. So I don't think anyone's going to be able to read it unless you zoom way in. But if you look at the top, we're saying, okay, now that the campaign's done, who's it focused on? Well, this one was focused on Magic Million. That's the top of the funnel, plus past clients. What is the goal? The goal is to get seller lead to request a CMA. And then see where it says on-site announcement? That's actually a really smart tactic, which takes your new thing and it shows it to every visitor on your website. Jimmy, show that really quickly on a Curaytor site. This is called an announcement. There's other terms for it, a pop-up. There's one called Hello Bar. But if you look at what we're doing, if we're going to put all this time and energy into publishing a new piece of content, see it right at the top for Judy. So the announcement is basically saying, if you've got visitors on your site, you can bring awareness to all of your new content right at the top of every page of your site. So that's Judy's latest announcement. Now go back to the doc for me, Jimmy, because after we do the announcement, we do the email. And again, you can see there's multiple subject lines. And then remember what I said earlier about the page mattering the most? Jimmy, what's at the middle right there? What's in the middle of that email?
The quote.
The exact quote.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The exact quote. And then look at the subject lines. We're coming up with multiple subject lines because they're that important. Your home's value is wrong. Is Zillow accurate? Is your Zestimate wrong? Right? So we're coming up with multiple variants, but if the landing page is long and the copy on the landing page is long, then it's okay for the email to be a little longer.
Yeah.
The email is basically a miniature version with no graphics of the next step. So you can see your report will be created by a human being. None of the reports run on an algorithm, and the information in it is not available to us or you at the push of a button. So this is the email that we put together with the seller page. Go to the next one. The Facebook business page, right? So for this one, we're saying, here's your budget, here's who to target. It's already a landing page, so the registration's already there. But again, we're sort of curating from the other things we already wrote, but we are writing a Facebook page update much different. What we're doing 90 times out of 100 on the Facebook page, Jimmy, is we're optimizing for the click. Our entire purpose is to get the link click. We put a budget behind it. We write the copy in a way that it reflects it, but it goes deeper. And we even did a really cool best practice there, double links. See that? Mm-hmm. We actually linked to it twice because when you do end up having like a long Facebook ad, you can link to what you're trying to get them to a couple times, kind of like the landing page. Yeah. They scrolled all the way down, but there was a call to action at the bottom. Same concept there. But here's what's interesting. Look at the Facebook profile. Look how different that is, Jimmy. How often do you check your Zestimate? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is so different than everything we've shown so far, because we're factoring in that these are their friends, these are their family, these are their past client. We're factoring in that whether you like it or not, I bet they're checking their Zestimate. And then what we're coaching our clients on is when you get the comments that come rolling in off of a post like that, dozens and dozens of 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 6, right? As they come in through the back channel in a private message or replying to their comment, then you link them over to the thing that's more accurate than the Zestimate. So we're optimizing for replies, but then behind the scenes, we're saying, hey, I noticed that you said you're checking your Zestimate once a month. You might want to use this report instead if you're close to selling your home. So it's sort of a sort of a counterpunch. We're not going for the kill right away.
Yeah. And you can see, and maybe I'll be able to share some of this on our blog later on, Chris, but basically what you're saying is, and this is maybe the most important part here, and I'll let you close the show out because we're at the time right now. What you're saying is every single channel, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email, every channel has a specific angle and a specific goal. And if you're just simply copying and pasting the same thing over and over again, you're missing a massive opportunity to actually utilize a channel in which you're promoting the content on.
Yeah, and we're not going to go much deeper, but yes, the LinkedIn one, we wrote a lot.
We put our tie on when we write that one, exactly.
Like when it's something like LinkedIn, look how we use data. 73% of Americans say knowing the value of their home is important, right? So like you do have to factor in that if this goes here, how should this be written? And that's another step people skip. But Jimmy, go back to the Prezi, because I think this was technically, which is very exciting, especially when you're the one doing this every week. It is very fulfilling when you get to the last step, right? And so the last step, once the microcopy's done, once the article's done, then it gets published everywhere, right? So for us at Curaytor, either our employees publish it for the client or we deliver it to the client to then do what you showed. Click, publish, copy the microcopy, and do it themselves. But zoom back, Jimmy, show the whole funnel again, or really the whole process, right? And I think hopefully that shows people how to build a seller campaign. Now, Jimmy, this gets really exciting when you do it every week. Like think of marketing as compounding interest. Yep. If everybody watching goes back and does this, it'll help their checking account. If everybody goes back and does this every week, it'll help their savings account. That is probably the easiest way to explain the difference between doing it with quality and consistency every week versus when you have time, which is what most people do.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. It's something that we saw at the beginning of the show when we asked the poll. 94% of people don't have a plan for July. So if your plan is to grow your business, but you don't have a plan to market and sell, then you really don't have a plan to grow.
Imagine how their sellers would feel if they knew that stat. I mean, that would hurt me. You don't have a plan to do marketing next month? My home's listed. Jesus. Get a plan. So anyway, the Water Cooler is a show about marketing, sales, and technology. Every episode, we try to bring you advice that works. Please subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on Spotify. Don't forget Curaytor.com/audio. You can win a MacBook. You can win an iPhone. You can also subscribe on YouTube. But Jimmy, great show. Curaytor.com/demo if you want to hire us to do that for you every single week. And Jimmy, we are off next week for July 4th, but I want to give a quick peek at July. Guys, we have a killer lineup. We have Brian Barrero from 1000 Watt, and we're going to ask him if the real estate industry is ending. We've got Tom Ferry, who's preparing for his biggest event of the year, the Summit, and we're going to get him to give us a sneak peek at all the takeaways. I'm going to be interviewing Jay Kinder. Jay Kinder is single-handedly growing EXP. They just passed 20,000 agents, and he's, I think, the number one reason why. I actually think Jay is helping EXP grow even more than their own CEO. And then we're going to bring on Connie Carlson, who is one of the top agents in Atlanta. She's smart. She's sophisticated. She's blowing up her business, and she's going to come on too. So great June worth of shows. July is going to be great. Make sure you guys subscribe. Cheers, and thanks for watching, everyone.